Did you know that 99% of women might find themselves incredibly attached, even addicted, to a specific kind of man, especially when loneliness is their silent companion? This isn't just a statistic, it's a deep psychological enigma affecting millions of relationships. Why does this happen? And what's the secret behind this powerful attraction that can lead to addiction? Prepare for a journey into the minds and hearts of people as we uncover the hidden patterns that shape our emotional bonds. This video will completely transform your perspective on these complex connections. We live in an age of hyperconnection, yet paradoxically, many of us feel more isolated than ever before. Loneliness, in its modern form, isn't just about being alone. It's about a perceived lack of meaningful connection, a deep emotional void that echoes within us. For women, this feeling can be particularly profound, often intensified by societal pressures or internal expectations about relationships and belonging. This isn't to say men don't experience it, of course, but the way it manifests and influences emotional susceptibility can differ significantly. When this emotional void exists, it's almost like a part of us becomes a magnet, desperately seeking something to fill that space, something to make us feel seen, valued, or simply less alone. Think of it like this. Our brains are wired for connection, for belonging. When that fundamental need isn't met, our psyche often kicks into overdrive, looking for any avenue to satisfy it. This can lead to what psychologists call attachment as a coping mechanism. In the absence of consistent, healthy emotional support, we might latch on to any source of attention or perceived connection, even if it's not truly healthy or sustainable. It's an instinctual, almost primal response to an unmet need, a way for our emotional system to try and self-regulate, to find some semblance of stability when none seems present. We become more vulnerable, more open to external emotional cues, even subtle ones, desperately hoping they signal the warmth we crave. Research has consistently shown that individuals experiencing chronic loneliness exhibit increased sensitivity to social signals, both positive and negative, often overinterpreting them as a means to either find connection or protect themselves from further hurt. It's a double-edged sword, making us simultaneously more hopeful and more easily wounded, creating a fertile ground for intense, sometimes overwhelming emotional pull toward certain individuals. Now let's shift our focus to the other side of this dynamic, the men who often trigger such intense, almost addictive attachment. What are their traits, their behavioral patterns? It's crucial to understand that we're not talking about inherently bad men here, but rather individuals who, consciously or unconsciously, possess a unique set of characteristics that resonate deeply with someone experiencing that emotional void. One common characteristic is a mysterious charisma, an air of unpredictability that makes them incredibly intriguing. They might be emotionally inconsistent, showering you with intense attention one moment, only to pull away the next, leaving you yearning for their return. This push-pull dynamic, known as intermittent reinforcement, is incredibly powerful, even addictive, a concept we'll delve into more deeply in a moment. These men often project a sense of power, a strong, perhaps even slightly dangerous aura, or alternatively, a deep vulnerability that elicits a protective, nurturing instinct. They might be the bad boy with a hidden soft side, the intellectual enigma, or the charismatic leader who seems to hold all the answers. They might master a subtle form of complex charm that isn't overtly manipulative, but rather deeply compelling. They know how to make you feel incredibly special, uniquely understood, even cherished. But then, just as you settle into that feeling, they create a distance. They might make grand promises about the future, hinting at a deep, profound connection. But these promises often remain just that. Promises, never quite materializing into consistent reality. There's an intentional ambiguity in their communication, a deliberate vagueness that keeps you guessing, constantly trying to decode their true feelings or intentions. They might send mixed signals, appearing deeply interested one day, then aloof and distant the next, creating a dizzying cycle of hope and anxiety. Consider Mark, who would write passionate, heartfelt messages late at night, declaring his deep feelings only to vanish for days, leaving Sarah agonizing over what she might have done wrong. Or David, who seemed utterly captivated during their dates, making her feel like the only woman in the world, yet would never commit to future plans, always keeping his options open. These behaviors aren't necessarily malicious. Sometimes they stem from their own unresolved issues. But regardless of the intent, the effect on someone seeking connection can be devastatingly powerful. It creates a dynamic of dependency, where the woman finds herself constantly striving for validation, for the return of that intense attention, trying to win back the affection that was momentarily withheld. This constant pursuit, this longing for what's just out of reach, is a prime ingredient in the recipe for intense, almost obsessive attachment. Now let's really unpack the psychological factors that transform this attachment into something akin to addiction. Our brains are truly fascinating, and they play a huge role in how we form these intense bonds. When we experience something pleasurable, whether it's eating chocolate, achieving a goal, or receiving affection from someone we desire, our brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. It's that feel-good chemical that makes us want to repeat the experience. In the context of relationships, especially those with emotionally unavailable or inconsistent partners, dopamine plays a particularly potent, almost insidious role. Here's where the concept of intermittent reinforcement becomes critical. Imagine a slot machine. You don't win every time, right? But occasionally you hit a jackpot. That unpredictable reward is what keeps people pulling the lever. It's far more compelling than a machine that either always pays out or never pays out. Human relationships can work in a similar, though far more complex way. When an emotionally inconsistent man gives you attention, affection, or validation sporadically, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, it creates a powerful psychological loop. Your brain becomes hyper-focused on those unpredictable wins. Each time he pulls away, your anxiety increases and your brain goes into overdrive, anticipating the next hit of dopamine, the next moment of connection. When that connection finally arrives, even if fleeting, it feels incredibly intense and rewarding, reinforcing the behavior of seeking it out. It's a cruel game of emotional peaks and valleys, and your brain, desperate for that next peak, keeps you engaged in the cycle. This isn't just about feeling good. It's about the intense anticipation, the relief, and the subsequent high that comes with the unpredictable reward. Furthermore, our past experiences cast long shadows over our present relationships. Childhood attachment styles, for instance, play a significant role. If a woman grew up with inconsistent parental figures, parents who were sometimes warm and available, sometimes distant or preoccupied, she might develop an anxious attachment style. This makes her more prone to seeking out and becoming intensely attached to partners who display similar patterns of inconsistency. It feels familiar, even if it's painful, because it echoes her earliest experiences of love and connection. Similarly, past romantic relationships that featured this push-pull dynamic can prime someone to fall into it again, almost like a conditioned response. We subconsciously seek what feels familiar, even if that familiarity is unhealthy. The drama, the uncertainty, the longing, it can all feel like love, if that's what we were taught love looked like.